Okay, you've just seen Us, Jordan Peele's follow-up to the fantastic Get Out, and you're probably thinking, what the hell just happened? We're in the same boat, so stick with us as we try and break down the complex plot of Us, delve into some of its hidden meanings, and try and explain that ending. Obviously, we're going to be sinking deep into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the film, go and check it out first, and then come right on back. Tam, please stop.
What? All right, so I think the best way to unpack exactly what's going on is to start at the end and then work our way backwards. So the most confusing part of it is the very final revelation, where it's revealed that Adelaide and Red, when they were children at the fun fair, switched places.
Yeah.
So effectively, the character that we've been seeing the entire time is a reflection of the character.
Yes, they're the tethered, not the human.
The tethered version of Adelaide. And once you know that, it kind of recasts the whole movie in an entirely new light. It raises questions about different actions and motivations, and it also kind of sparks your imagination to think back and look for the clues that led up to this revelation, because they are definitely there.
Yeah, I think if you rewatch this film, you're going to get a completely different experience just by shifting that perspective ever so slightly. So, like, if we can assume that, like, Adelaide and Red, remembered that experience of switching when they were children, that gives, like, the whole, actions of Adelaide's character a whole new meaning and sort of a set of motivation. Okay, so the initial thing that we can get out of this is that it gives an explanation for why the young Adelaide, who's returned from the House of Mirrors, why she's mute. That's because she is now the tethered and she doesn't speak English. She has to acclimatise to her new surroundings and relearn that language. Yeah. We understand that obviously the tethered throughout the film don't speak any English at all except for Red.
Yeah, they have grunts.
And howls that are super
really cool.
Freaky. So fast forward 30 years and Adelaide is now a mother, and she's got a secret buried deep down that her family just don't know about. The fact that she is not a human, she's a tethered, a clone, a doppelganger, whatever you want to call it. So this casts a whole new light on like how she acts or how she thinks throughout that sort of first and second act.
Yeah.
Especially with like her fear of returning to the beach. Yeah. You can read into that like that she's concerned about being discovered, like refinding the tethered in the House of Mirrors. She's very cagey and anxious about all of that stuff.
Yeah. And she talks about she talks about feeling like she's always been pursued by this thing, and that is speaking to the real version of her coming. Yeah. She feels like the real version of her is coming to take what she's stolen back almost.
Yeah, she's effectively, in that switch, stolen the human Adelaide's life.
Yeah.
She now has this privileged lifestyle, and obviously she doesn't want to lose that. So when she's finally confronted by the jumpsuit-wearing tethered, the doppelgangers, and crucially, the original Adelaide, who henceforth is now known as Red, Adelaide is obviously quite anxious and eager to sort of kill or get rid of the tethered just so she can retain that sense of her privileged lifestyle.
You initially interpret that as like a mother fighting really, really hard for her family.
Yeah.
But once you've seen the ending, it's like, no, this is someone who's selfish.
Yeah.
This is someone who's out for herself. She's trying to hold on to this thing that she's stolen from someone else and now knows they come to reclaim it.
I feel like it means like she's getting closer.
Who? The mirror girl?
Adelaide even has a couple of lapses into that more feral-like nature of the tethered, especially when she kills the second twin. Like, she emits like this weird grunt howl that's very unhuman-like, and her son Jason sees this, and that sort of seeds his doubt as to whether she is who she appears to be.
Yeah, he starts to suspect. And it's really, what I love about it is like this idea that you can't change who you are, and it's reflected in both Red and Adelaide.
Okay, so let's talk about Red then. Obviously, she started as human and was sort of left behind in the underground with the tethered for 30 years. So she's got a huge amount of resentment for her doppelganger, which kind of fuels her motivation. She's not necessarily just this other, like this unusual monster. She's actually got actual motivation for wanting to come back to the surface and get revenge, basically, on her doppelganger. One thing we can like draw from her being, this new role is that when she does go underground, she retains some of the English that she knew as a 5-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And she kind of gets to acclimatise to the new sort of tethered environment and learn some of their way, some of their language. But this gives us a reason as to why Red is the only tethered that can speak English. None of the other tethered speak at all. It's only Red. So that gives us that a reason for that.
Be careful.
So it's kind of heartbreaking what Red has to go through, but it really speaks to why she would be motivated to take the actions that she took. So she's effectively getting a dark reflection of the life her doppelganger is having above, which kind of makes her want to take action and see some of that back for herself, which is why we have this plan. It's why she, comes up with the revolt almost.
Yeah, it completely fuels that motivation, doesn't it? Her being able to see that sort of dark shadow reflection of her real life, so she can see what she's literally missing out on through the reflection.
She's entitled to and what was stolen away from her.
So Red delivers a line that is actually relatively confusing as well, where she says, "Oh, you to Adelaide," she says, "You could have taken me with you," and like without the knowledge of the switch, this sounds a bit sort of bizarre and strange. But I think what it sort of means is that Red is just angry that like she was left behind and the tethered version of Adelaide went up to the surface world, whereas Red thinks that is there a reason why we both couldn't have gone? Or why she feels unfavoured there, I think.
Yeah. It's just a case of like it didn't have to be this way. The fact that this person didn't even consider a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Situation. Yeah.
So, amongst the many, many questions we have, perhaps the biggest is, who are the tethered?
Who are they?
What are they? We kind of get drip-fed clues about what they may be throughout the movie, but it's in like the third act where the movie basically grabs us and says, the tethered are this.
Info dump.
Yeah. So Red eventually, who's the human version and understands everything, eventually explains what they are, but the explanation is left kind of purposefully vague. But it's generally along the lines of the tethered are clones that were created and seemingly of everyone in the above world, which shout out to whoever managed that.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
And they don't actually outright confirm who it is. There's kind of like an indication that it might be the government, but like the actual facility where it's happening has like a kind of psychological experiment vibe, not even like a science lab vibe. It's like psychology.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's sort of like that darker shadow self psychology element.
Yeah.
Very Carl Jungian.
Yeah.
Right,
And they were created as a means to, I think this is a very briefly mentioned, it's like a fleeting line, to control the population above.
Yeah.
But it's not quite explained in what fashion. Like we have the boy able to physically control another version of himself.
Yeah.
But he's the only one that can seemingly do that.
Yeah, and he sort of figures that out in that scene where they're in the cupboard, right? He sort of like puts his arm up and they sort of they mirror that.
Trick.
What are you people?
It's us.
So on a more thematic level, the tethered definitely stand for a darker side of us. And Jordan Peele's kind of gone as far as sort of confirming that idea. He had an interview with The Guardian and he said, "We are our own worst enemy, not just as individuals, but more importantly as a group, as a family, as a society, as a country, as a world. We're afraid of the shadowy," this is all you, and us. "We're afraid of the shadowy, mysterious other that's going to come and kill us and take our jobs and do whatever. But what we're really afraid of is the thing we're suppressing, our sin, our guilt, our contribution to our own demise. No one's taking responsibility for where we're at. Owning up, blaming ourselves for our part in the problems of the world is something I'm not seeing." So in this regard, the whole film like really doubles on that duality, in humanity and how there's clearly like a darker side to everyone.
Yeah, it's our ability to see a problem, recognize it's a problem in some cases, and then detach ourselves from it.
Walk the other way.
And walk the other way. You look at something, like the easy one is global warming, right? Literally everyone is saying, this is screwing up the earth, but the problem is for us to accept that, we need to take responsibility that we are the cause and we continue to be the cause.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie is kind of hinting at. It's like we're not at a stage where we're taking responsibility for our failures so that we can move forward.
So Us really doubles down. see what I did there, on the duality. So there's lots of references, hidden meanings, imagery to sort of doubles and duality. So let's start with the tethered scissors. There's literally a mundane household item that is
Double
made,
knives.
Double knives, yeah, brought together. And Peele just like peppers throughout the film loads of like imagery of like doubles and shadow selves. There's the shot that you see from the trailer where they're sort of like that bird's eye view where they're walking along the beach, where their shadows are sort of coming off from them. Like that just, for me, just takes on a whole new meaning when you kind of double down on the sort of shadow selves of the doppelgangers.
There's Jeremiah as well, which the kind of like
11.
Like reflections, even in the choice of kind of the Bible verse you pick, 1-1-1-1.
Yeah, and that's sort of the silhouettes of the family as well. You like see 1-1.
And Jeremiah 11:11 is effectively like doomsaying. Like the actual quote is, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them."
It's basically the Tethered's manifesto, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Beyond that, there are loads more allusions to 11-11. We noticed that the American football game that Gabe's watching is tied at 11-11. Obviously, the clock states 11-11. We see that a couple of times. And I'm sure there are tons more references that we've missed. So if you've seen some that we haven't noticed, chuck them down in the comments below.
What does it all mean,
I
Adam?
don't know, Tam. Are you going to tell me?
Yeah. So I'm going to try. Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to speculate. The thing with the movie is it's not as clear-cut as Get Out was. There's not a lot is explained. Instead, it's like illusions, and it's wanting you to draw your own conclusions.
It's definitely open to more interpretation, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a movie that's really happy or like comfortable and is created to explore moral grey areas, ambiguities. I think the easiest and the most simplest takeaway is that the tethered represent the repressed.
I think like a lot of people are sort of reading the film as the tethered are sort of the poor working classes and they are sort of kept at bay by like the upper and middle classes.
It's quite a start through the lens of horror. It's presenting those of us that have privilege versus those of us who never will and can only look upon it from the outside.
The great thing about the film is that I think that is a great interpretation of it, but like the tethered could be any form of repressed sort of side of society, like poor, underprivileged, ill, sick,
elderly people,
minorities. There's any number of interpretations there, and I think it goes back to what Jordan Peele was saying, is how like it's that fear of the other, the unknown. Like that's sort of an intrinsic horror sort of thing. Like a lot of horror is about like trying to put a name on the thing that scares us. And I think what Us does is it doesn't put a name on it. It doesn't put a label or a tag or anything like that. It just says this is the other, the unknown. And I'm not going to spoon feed you with what that is. Yeah. It's whatever you fear the most, and like as a society, what we fear the most as well.
And there is like room to interpret it as like it does have a message, and that message is like try to understand the other person, because us as an audience, we spend the entire movie thinking that Adelaide is one type of person, and in the very final moments when the twist is revealed and you realize, oh, Red was the original person. In that moment, you realize that your thinking was wrong. You understand why she did this.
Yeah.
And you almost sympathize with this character that, until that point, you've only interpreted as a villain.
And Jordan Peele has even gone as far as to say that Us is very much about America as a country and like its history and its social, economic, political situations that have happened in the past. And I think this... I mean, obviously we've got that sort of very on-the-nose line from when Gabe asks the tethered, "Who are you?" and they say,
"We're Americans."
And that must be quite... I found that a bit heavy-handed, but like I think it gives the film not sort of, or at least the title of the film, a nice sort of duality to it as well. Like, obviously it's Us, but then it could also be read as US, as in the United States. And so in this way, like some of America's sort of unsavory history hangs very heavy on the film, and there's quite a few references to some of this stuff. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that we've got so many references to the 1986 Hands Across America sort of demonstration. I think, that was a demonstration that very much was about trying to raise awareness and money and charity for poverty and the homeless populations. And 30 years down the line, I think the point is that like we haven't really gotten away from that.
Yeah, we haven't actually achieved much with it. I mean, that line "we're Americans" is really kind of chilling because it comes when Red is explaining why she's doing it, everything she's lost. So it almost presents the idea that this kind of like vicious revolt is as American as kind of having this amazing American dream lifestyle.
Yeah.
Don't forget that there are people out there who are willing to do things to have what you have, and you should be aware of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really pertinent, the idea that don't forget us. Like, we are Americans too.
Yeah.
Like, we're the same as you, just like we don't lead that same lifestyle. We don't have the sense of privilege that the upper classes have.
It could even be seen as a warning, like if you forget and you push these people away for long enough, this is what it leads to. And it's in our interest to show them some sympathy and try to understand them now before it becomes impossible to stop.
Okay, so a lot of people have been furiously speculating about the idea that Us and Get Out exist in the same universe. I don't know if that's true or it makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people are drawing parallels between
The
Tethered
sunken place and the Tethered.
Yeah, the sunken
like.
place, yeah. What I do know is that Jordan Peele has, like, in that same interview to The Guardian, he said, I've got a plan for a quartet of movies that are all sort of thematically linked, Us and Get Out being the first two of those. So it might just be more sort of thematic, like trying to explore areas of US political history.
Yeah, so he didn't actually say, yes, they're in the same universe, but he did say, like, they're part of the same project almost.
Yeah.
So there is support for, if you want to go and argue to your friends that it exists in the same kind of like space as Get Out, you've got evidence.
Knock yourself out.
Knock yourself out. If someone tells you that that's not correct, kill them.
Wow, okay, no, don't kill anyone. We don't have to kill. The one thing I'm taking away from this, though, is that it sounds like we've got 2 more Jordan Peele horror films to look forward to, and that is, a good thing for me, so yeah. Okay, so our brains are sufficiently fried trying to untangle everything that's going on in us. There's a lot to unpack in this film.
Yeah, and I am very up for having my brain refried over and over again, because this is a movie that is completely open to interpretation. There's a lot of room for speculation, theorizing, and most importantly, analysis, and that's really, really exciting. I know that the threads on Reddit, subreddits are going to be like super, super interesting for the next few weeks. Theorizing on Twitter, and we want to hear what you've got to say, how you interpret certain, themes or whatever it may be, and your various theories. So let us know about those in the comments below. You can also find us on Twitter. I'm at Tamoor H.
I'm at Adam Rees-Mace.
Send us your theories directly, and we will see you next time.